Greetings everyone, welcome back to Blade Bias. The cheese has finally released, and by all accounts, it should be a massive joke. Not even worth your time. But somehow, also, by all accounts, it is absolutely worth your time, and I think a really fantastic offering from Nabalis. Now, despite the fact that it totally should be a joke, I'm going to dedicate way too long to breaking this thing down in extreme detail, because not only do I really like it, but I also have a few key problems with it, and problems that I haven't seen discussed on anyone else's channel that I think would be warranted bringing up on mine. So, come with me as I devote way too much time to seriously analyzing a Balisong that looks like a piece of cheese. Here we go. So, let's start off with some things that we've learned since my last video on the cheese. We now have official, well, I say official pricing. We'll get into that in a second. We now have official pricing, but also, as brought to my attention by Benjamin Flips in the comment section of my unboxing video, the spare hardware is actually yellow. So if you're someone who wishes that there wasn't that sort of contrast with the hardware, there you go. You can put in the spare hardware, which is yellow, and then it will blend right in, kind of like the Zen pins do. I personally am a little annoyed to not have a spare set of white pivots, because if I strip one of these or if they break somehow, then I'll have to put in a yellow one, which is a little annoying, and then it'll be super mismatched. But it is cool to have that kind of customization in the box, especially on a product like this. Now, let's get into pricing really quickly. They officially have it listed at $75, or is it $85? Yet again, Nabalis is doing the thing where they say it's on sale, even though I'm pretty sure on Instagram, on their story, they said it was supposed to be $75. I'll give them credit. Unlike the Canyon, if you remember, the Canyon had a literal slide in its promotional pictures that said 45 whatever. Like, it had a price and it didn't match what this fake sale price was. So that was a big blunder. They didn't do that this time, but I still don't know if this is a BS sale, if this is a real sale. So I'm going to be evaluating the cheese, just like I did the Canyon, at its non-sale price, which it has listed here as $85. $10 more than the Teflon Vulp, which I think might actually hurt it in the long run. But we'll see. Because, honestly, I think the cheese, spoiler alert, is fantastic. In fact, I might even go as far to say that this is my favorite Nabalis product that they have released for under $100. I really do think that the cheese product is amazing, and it's brought down by a few key things that Nabalis is trying to sell in terms of the cheese. But we'll get into that later. Let's talk first and foremost about what everyone wants to know. Let's talk about the actual product you get in the box. Let's talk about the flipping experience, the experience of owning the cheese. What is it? I think the cheese, well, in case you don't know, the cheese is a Teflon-coated steel and 6061 aluminum Balisong running on bushings for $85. And it is pretty great, honestly. Actually, hold on really quickly. I should also show off if you pay $5 more, you get a cute little 3D printed cheese stand. They also say you get a Nabalis pouch. I don't know what that means. I haven't seen pictures of it. They didn't send me one, so I can't speak on that. They also don't have pictures of it. I don't know if that comes with all of them. I don't know anything about the pouch, but if you pay an extra $5, you get the little cheese stand, which is pretty cool. And also, Nabalis sent this Balisong for free for the purpose of these videos I've been making. But any and all opinions expressed in these videos are my own. I hold no financial affiliation with Nabalis whatsoever. No affiliate links, no sponsorship, nothing. This is all my opinion, as always, on this channel. So, just so you're aware, they did send it out for free, but the only thing that they asked in return was for me to make a video. So, the cheese, I think, is a really well-implemented slight handle bias Balisong. It is all the hallmarks of your very typical slight handle bias. You can kind of feel it in the fans, but it still fans nicely enough because it's not crazy handle biased, but it's handle bias enough to make chaplains, rollovers, very handle bias tricks, especially 0Gs, stick as much as you would want it to, and also even this little like double thumb rollover that I've been trying to get consistent lately feels as smooth as ever on the cheese. I really do think the cheese is going to come out as a great beginner Balisong because it has that slight handle bias that beginners are looking for. And if you're wondering what makes a good beginner Balisong in my eyes, maybe I'll make a video on it at some point, but most of the tricks that you learn when you first get into the hobby rely on handle bias. Things like rollovers and chaplains are things that are going to be affected far more by handle bias than really anything else on the Balisong. So having a slightly handle bias Balisong like that is going to make it easier to flip and learn new tricks as you get into the hobby. Also, sorry if I sound out of breath this video. It's very hot in my room, so I might be a little huffy and puffy. But the cheese is great. It's got that very slight handle bias that I feel like squid is so known for, but it's implemented in a way that squid doesn't do, because something like the Triton is like a very stereotypical squid Balisong slight handle bias, and I hate the Triton. I don't think it's that great. The cheese brings that slight handle bias to the masses at a cheaper price and also at a more accessible handle bias because it doesn't kill fans like some other handle bias Balisongs do. You do notice a slight degradation in fans compared to something like, I don't know, a wing, which has a little bit more blade weight to it. But I find that for the price range that they're targeting especially, it's a very, very good balance. And like I said, I've been really enjoying learning more handle bias tricks on it because it makes them feel exceptionally smooth without making me miss the performance of fanning in some cases. In fact, I would almost describe the cheese as a kind of cheap Kraken trainer. The kind of Balisong that has that slight handle bias, can still fan okay, and is just going to do whatever trick that you want it to do in a really competent way. And while, especially now that I have this ball bearing in this insert, my zippy insert, especially now that that's in there, I think that the Kraken trainer is still going to stand on top of the cheese for me. But with the stock Kraken trainer V3, I could legitimately see a world where someone would prefer the Kraken trainer V3 over the cheese. Sorry, reverse that. I could see a world where someone would prefer the cheese over the Kraken trainer V3 because the cheese has a little bit more tip weight and fans a tiny bit better than the Kraken trainer V3 does. And it's something that someone legitimately might look into and say, man, I like that better. Me personally, especially with this weighted zippy insert, I do think I prefer the Kraken trainer, mostly because the fit and finish of the Kraken trainer is much better. Tolerances, the satin finish, the quality of the machining, the quality of the grip, I think go far beyond what the cheese is able to provide, especially since mine is bone dry right now. Since lubing these white blades create this black gunk everywhere that it's so annoying to clean, and it gets all over the handles. The same thing happened with my Teflon Vulp. I lubed it, and the lube like stained it. So I don't even try to lube these white Teflon blades anymore. My cheese is completely dry, and it's going to stay that way since it just leaks oil like nobody's business. Kind of like the Squiddy AL did, but this time it actually stains the blade and maybe even the handles on the cheese. Definitely on the Teflon Vault, but yeah, so the tolerances are okay, but like just the feel in the hand, it's definitely lower quality than the Kraken trainer. While I think the flipping experience is pretty close to a Kraken trainer, if you ask me, I do think that the feel in the hand is not very close. I think the Kraken trainer feels far more premium. Design choices to improve grip, like the jimping on the cheese, are just not great. They're really all saved by this Teflon coating, which makes grip fantastic, honestly. I think the grip is very, very good on the cheese, but that's because of the Teflon coating and not really because of any specific design choices that they made. If this didn't have the Teflon coating, I think this jimping would go down as not being very good jimping for an aluminum Balisong at all. You have something like the Teflon Vulp, which does have legitimately good jimping even outside the Teflon grip. But the cheese, it's relying entirely on its Teflon coating in order to get that grip. Do I think that's a bad thing? Not necessarily, but just pointing out that if they didn't do the Teflon coating on this thing, I don't know if it would be as highly regarded as it is right now because of those grip issues, because it is a very, very basic design. There was also discussion, specifically Pyro talked about this, of the chaplain on the bite handle performing weirdly, and that is very true. While you shouldn't be flipping or chaplaining on the bite handle at all, it is true that it feels more unstable and it flies off your finger faster. I think this has something to do with the way that you are interacting with this little bite indicator right here. I find my finger sliding all over it, causing kind of increases and decreases in the velocity of the chaplain overall, which is making it just feel more unstable than it is, and creating a not so great experience. But again, you shouldn't care about that because you shouldn't be chaplaining on the bite side. The safe side chaplains amazingly. And while we're talking about that, you can maybe kind of feel the difference in the handles a little bit because of the way that they took out this material for the cheese texture. You can maybe feel that a little tiny bit, but honestly, if I didn't talk to Pyro about it, I might not have even noticed it, so I'm not even going to chalk that up as a thing that you should worry about. It feels mostly the same on both of the handles. I can't really detect a difference. And if I can detect a difference, I wouldn't be sure if it was actually a difference or if it was just my brain saying, oh, you should be feeling a difference, so I'm going to make you feel a difference, something like that. But overall, I think the cheese is genuinely fantastic. It flips really good. It's comfortable. It does any trick that you would throw at it reasonably well. And I think, as I said earlier, it is Nabalis' best product, or at least my favorite of their products, for under $100. The only thing that I would say could go toe-to-toe with it would be the marbles, but I have not been able to spend enough time with the marbles to actually customize it to my liking in order to say that it would beat or lose to the cheese. So I'll just say that 9 times out of 10, I'm choosing the cheese. I think it's way, way better than the extrusion. I think it's better than the Canyon. I think it's better than the Vulp. And I think it would trade blows with the marbles. So it's a really, really solid pickup. Do I prefer it over the Teflon Vulp? I would say yes. But I also would say if you are only getting one of these to try out the Teflon coating that everyone's raving about, I would just get a Teflon Vulp. It's $10 cheaper. It still flips pretty well. It still has that same tuning improvements that they've made. So I don't really think there's any reason, if you're only trying to test out the Teflon coating, to spend the extra $10. But if you're looking for a legitimate first Balisong, or just an addition to your collection that is Teflon, I think I would pick the cheese every single time. It just flips genuinely good. I think it's going to be a really good competitor in the beginner market. It's going to be a great recommendation for beginners. I really, really enjoy it. So what brings it down then? I mentioned earlier that it's a great Balisong that gets brought down by a few key things. I think besides the fact that you can't really lube it unless you want to get the oil gunk everywhere, I have a huge, huge problem with the marketing of this Balisong. If you go onto their website, you will see very specifically in bold letters, they will say cheese. The first cute, harmless, and public-friendly metal trainer. The first. Maybe they mean in their collection, but I know quite a few metal trainers which would have a problem with that description. The first? I don't know about that. So already I'm a little bit suspect on that. They could mean in their own lineup, and there could be a translation or a language barrier there. But to claim that the cheese is the first cute, harmless, and public-friendly metal trainer, I think is ridiculous. But it doesn't just stop there, because they continue on to really hammer home that the cheese is an amazing public flipper. If you go into their design message, you're talking about a cute, public-friendly metal Balisong. You scroll down, public-friendly is one of the huge things that they're talking about. And I do think that that's genuinely not a great way to look at it. I really do have a problem with calling this thing non-threatening, and friendly. I'm going to do a video on this in the future, but there are 3 main pillars that I'll explain in this future video that I have when evaluating if a Balisong is going to be a good public flipper. 3 pillars are 1, durability, 2, flippability, and 3, non-threatening nature. How quickly can I communicate that this is not a knife? Because when you go out in public with a Balisong, trainer or not, you're expected to follow a certain etiquette because all of these things look the same when they're flipping. And you might say, Ethan, it's unfair of you to say that this thing doesn't look public friendly when it's literally this harmless looking yellow with this white blade. Sure, friendly colors are fun and a good way to maybe make them less harmful looking, but funny, friendly colors have existed for as long as the hobby itself, or at least as long as aluminum Balisongs have existed. And Cerakote has also existed. So, to call this thing public friendly because of the colors, I think isn't great, because all of these things look the same when you're flipping them. It doesn't matter what color it is. If people know what a Balisong is, they're automatically going to assume that you're flipping a weapon. And unfortunately, I don't think the cheese does anything to kind of dispel that. If I'm flipping the Squiddy AL, it is so easy to stop flipping it and just present it to somebody. It's got a smiley face. There's no blade shape. It has hair. It is, by definition, a non-threatening, cute, public-friendly trainer, and it's metal. I don't really think there's many people who would look at this little guy, and that's the reason they put the face on the Squiddies, and say, oh, that's a dangerous looking guy. It's a trainer. It's not going to hurt you. It's got a smiley face on it. The cheese doesn't have anything like that. Sure, it has these holes. Sure, it has this pastel color base, but we've had Balisongs with holes in the trainer blade for as long as trainers have existed. This is like an Arctic trainer blade. It's a typical Tonto that doesn't really communicate anything. Similar to the Arctic. The Arctic is something that I flipped in public for a little bit when I first had it. And there's nothing really about it that says, hey, I'm a friendly, non-sharp knife, because it has the same general profile as one. Now, you might be saying, perfectly fairly, Ethan, this doesn't matter. Why? Who cares if they think it's a public-friendly flipper and you don't? It's a difference of opinion. Who cares? You can't really dock them points on that. And honestly, fair call. That's a completely fair take to levy at me. Fine. But I am perhaps a little bit worried about what that is going to do for someone who buys the cheese. If I'm a new Balisong flipper, I don't know how people are going to react to Balisongs. I don't know any of this etiquette. I'm going to see this, the first cute, harmless, public-friendly metal trainer, and I'm just going to take Nabalis at their word. Oh, it's harmless. Oh my gosh. And then I'm not going to put the time and effort into actually learning some of that public flipping etiquette that people have been talking about. I know specifically Will's been talking about for a long time. So I'm just going to have this complete faith that this is a harmless looking trainer, and it could legitimately get me into trouble where I'm not practicing in ways that I really should be in public, and it's causing some people to be uncomfortable, and I'm not doing anything to mitigate that because I, in my head, believe it's harmless because Nabalis told me it was harmless. When in reality, if you ask me, there's nothing about this that differentiates it from any other trainer on the market. So to call it a public-friendly thing, I think is just crazy, especially to call it the first harmless-looking metal trainer, when pretty much every Balisong since the Canyon, they've been saying, oh, public-friendly, public-friendly, public-friendly. I know that's a thing that they really pushed with the extrusion, was how public-friendly it was, and how much you could flip it in public, even though, like, there's nothing about it that makes it public-friendly except the fact that it has a purple blade. And then you also have the fact that it's the durability of it. The durability of it is not great because while it is aluminum, this Teflon coating is not very strong whatsoever. That's why I like the Squiddy AL so much, is because, sure, it doesn't hide these blemishes, but I think it looks fine. Still looks cool. It's not damaged in any way. This Teflon coating, even though I've only flipped it in my room, anytime it's touched something harder than a piece of plastic, it leaves this little dent. And to Nabalis' credit, It's not flaking like a normal Cerakote would, but it is still being damaged. So to flip this over concrete especially, I don't think is going to hold up very well, but I guess we'll just have to see how Pyros holds up, since I know that he, I believe, is planning on beating his a little more thoroughly than maybe some other YouTubers are. Or maybe I'll do mine. I don't know. I wouldn't really commit to that. I don't really beat Balisongs because I don't flip them over concrete that often. But I really do think that that could cause problems for some people. And maybe it won't be many, but it might be someone. So that's kind of why I believe that the cheese, while being a great Balisong, while being a Balisong that I will recommend to people, again, it's a case of Nabalis making a great product and marketing it in a way that I just don't understand pretty much at all. Because if they just said, hey, it's a great beginner Balisong, and it's funky looking, it's a funky looking beginner Balisong, I would have no problems with that. Like, it's a great beginner Balisong, and it is funky looking. That's cool. That's great. But to say it's cute or it's harmless, I don't know where they're getting that idea from, because the color alone doesn't really convey that idea. Anyway, I think this video has gone on far enough. At the end of the day, what matters more than the marketing is the product that you receive, and the product that you receive is great. I think the cheese is amazing. I will happily recommend it to any beginners looking to get into the hobby. I would even recommend it to people who are looking to grow their collection with a weird, goofy little trainer that's Teflon coated and has some unique property about it, unlike anything else in your collection. I genuinely think this is an extraordinarily good Balisong for the price. Maybe not Orion level, but certainly Nabalis is, this might be a crazy claim to make, but I think this is Nabalis Orion. It's the Balisong that flips way above its weight class, and way above its price class, I should say, and is just genuinely a good deal. So that's the cheese. I think it's good. I think it's brought down by the marketing, but ultimately the marketing doesn't really change the fact that it is a good product that I really enjoy and that I would recommend. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll have to make videos on all the stuff I mentioned in this video. Public flippers, what makes a good beginner Balisong, stuff like that. That'll come down the pipeline eventually. But for right now, thank you all for watching. Thank you to Nabalis for sending this thing out for these videos. And I will see you guys in the next one. Later.